And your title is Data Journalism, the missing link between the politics of open data and the myths of citizen data literacy? Question mark.
Yes. Thank you, Drew. I think I will be a little bit controversial here, so let's begin. I will start from the assumption that the ideas such as open data and data literacy are myths. Basically, just to give you a little bit of introduction, I'm sure that you're aware of the G8's attempt to create an open charter, data charter, which they did, and has been tried to be enforced in different countries that sign the real the agreement. And the idea was that this open charter was meant to be doing really interesting things. Open data has been passionately believed to improve governance, transparency, citizen participation, things like that. With the expansion of open data, obviously there was a really interesting opportunity for journalism, and that's why we have this such growth in data journalism. So journalism became some sort of data sense making device for people to who was not able to understand data, and in the same way that many of us understand it. But just to be clear, I was the guy who was on the Cardiff in 2013. Esther was presenting her quite famous paper now in a room full of academics and people actually coming from the Guardian. I was the guy who said to the people from the Guardian, guys, your infographics are beautiful, but I don't understand any of those. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is that despite the efforts of government and journalists to help general citizens to make sense of data, let's be honest, general citizens are unable to understand data in the same terms as data journalists, or perhaps data scientists. Basically because they don't have the instrumental knowledge, that is the capacity to process, clean, messy data, analyze and present data, but also the critical understanding of data, what I call critical data awareness, things which are I'm going to explain later. There's a really interesting quote from a colleague of mine, Ben Williamson, who says, young people are educated to become computational operatives who must learn to code in order to become smart citizens in the governance of the smart city. So it pretty much seems to be an attempt from governments to impose some sort of innovation rhetoric on us. So the way in which I approach this from a theoretical perspective is basically to challenge the notion of open data as something that has been really intermediated by politicians, by governments, by media. And also the idea of citizen data literacy. I just published a paper on the state of current affairs on data journalism in the UK, and many of the data journalists I interviewed agree with me that people are not really equipped with the cognitive tools to make sense of data. This is something that is only accessible to statisticians, mathematicians, and people like that. So a really interesting research that I checked on the open data in different countries found that one of the most prominent barrier for the implementation of open data policies in these countries was a lack of educational and training infrastructure for citizens to better understand data. So basically, as Kirsten will say, open data then further empower and enrich the already empowered and the will provide for those people that is making good use of open data for different financial economical benefits. For instance, the growth that has experimented the intermediary sector quite lately. So journalists within that have been a really helpful device. They've been really helpful in creating some sort of crowdsourced effort in constructing knowledge. And why do journalists do that? It's basically because, well, data is the second most significant form of evidence after interviews, if we consider it. And there are basically many data journalists will always tell that they are seeking collaborations with their audiences, with their publics. So they've been trying to do that with varying degrees of success. So in that, apologies for what you will see from now on. I will argue during my presentation that a really interesting project I found during my research on data journalism in the UK might have the necessary tools to actually expose citizens, regular mortals, to data journalism. And that project is called AMPT. Paul made a brief mention of that. I will delve deep into it. So these guys did something really interesting, which was popularizing data journalism. And what happens in the UK, let me just give you a little bit of context, is that the UK has the particularity of being really pro-tabloid journalism. And tabloid journalism, as you can see, is prevalent there. The Sun or the Daily Mail are the largest circulation news publications in the UK. And the Daily Mirror is actually fourth within that list. So tabloid journalism, from a theoretical perspective, Combo will say, Martin Combo, is targeted to a working class readership and uses things such as sports, celebrities, royal family, entertainment to appeal to people. So AMPT, just imagine, is a Trinity Mirror data journalism project that they come up with. Something that tried to use the ideals of tabloid journalism with the sense of accuracy of a broadsheet publication. So they were really successful doing that during at least 2 years. They had 7 million unique browser visits a month, but they were basically shut down after 2 years. So this is the type of data journalism that we're doing, as you can see, and I will look at a series of outputs. So basically what I did in terms of methodology was using a deviant case method. Obviously AMPT within my corpus of analysis is an anomaly. It's a type of data journalism which is quite unusual, and you will see why. And I had the opportunity to interview the two main brains behind the idea, which were Malcolm Coles and Martin Beelem, and then Anna Leach, who was the editor at the time. So in my attempt of deconstructing AMPT, I basically, during my previous research, categorized data journalism in 3 kind of broad forms. One was a daily quick turnaround, generally visualized brief form of data journalism, something that you will might see on the Guardian's data blog. An extensive, thoroughly researched, investigative form of data journalism, and that one is perhaps not as glamorous as you will see. Perhaps it's not meant to have a visualization. It's something that will be part of a long-form investigative journalism piece. And the third one was basically talking about AMPT here, a live editorialized, entertaining, often humorous, gamified form of data journalism. So Coles, when he told me why they pitched this story to the CEO, Simon Fox, Trinity Mirror's CEO, said they were trying to humanize data journalism because they saw a recurring issue with data journalism, which was how can you tell stories in a way that normal, ordinary, everyday people can relate to them. And remember, we're talking about working class people here, okay? So Beelem's approach to it was sometimes picking a fight in order to engage with social media conversation. It's really interesting the way in which they managed to expand their narrative to some sort of what I called the extra diegetic 24/7 omnipresent watchdog. It was really interesting transmedia meta-narrative. They were mostly fact-checking things, and you have a very interesting example. Willem told me that they will pretty much, he will pretty much address the team and says, okay, I found this, debunked it, okay? So as you can see, this is a really interesting tweet by the Department of Work and Pensions from the UK, and by just simply rearranging the proportions of the infographics, it already makes a lot of sense. It already actually convey a more clearer image that people can relate to. I'm talking about really simple things that people, ordinary people, can understand. So as you can see, this is a really interesting way of teaching people elementary notions of proportions. Well, they also use popular politics to actually appeal people. They also mentioned that they have a really strong angle. Willem told me that the Mirror has a strong angle. It's a left wing, it's about fairness in society, and as opposed to many of the tabloids in the UK which are right wing, this was one who actually wanted to look after the interests of working people. So they attempted to clearly show them, okay, show people how numbers were manipulated on a regular basis by politicians. And they were really good at using clickbait content to introduce some more serious criticisms. As you can see, this is the GCHQ story about being spied by the services of intelligence of the UK. And what they did was they approached the whole issue instead of using the normal approach, which was as a hard news story. They basically did that. What intimate body parts is the GCHQ agency with their Yahoo webcam surveillance. So you can have an infographic, a pie chart, pretty much explaining what is potentially the most seen body part. Well, they're conducting their intelligence spy. So it's interesting to see how they've reached a really interesting balance between what they consider was the news agenda, but also the everyday concerns of disenfranchised audiences, such as webcam, sex, or things like that. They also use sports and celebrity culture, and they basically were really satirical about that. And this is an example that Paul already explained, so I'm not going to. He already did that for me, which gives me a couple of minutes. When I asked about that particular piece, he said, I'm trying to bring Willem in particular. He's he's an interesting character. He's now working for The Guardian. He said, I'm trying to bring a data journalism approach to silly stories and a tabloid approach to serious stories. So this is another really interesting example, and you're not going to open it. There you go. That's fine. Don't do it. Where they were, again, trying to humanize numbers and using the two most popular feeds of a tabloid publication to connect audiences to serious matters. That was basically quite, I don't know, they were saying, yes, 1,200 days. But it's only through these some sort of visual, powerful statement that you really see the relevance of those numbers. So this is, again, a really elementary forming of explaining the context of numbers to people and issues of sample and population. The last of the cases I studied was gender, and they were really active at advocating for gender equality. And it's interesting that you were talking about gender issues in data journalism. So there you go. UK right-wing tabloids have been really criticized by the approach to gender. And Willem told me that I think AMP has been very progressive in looking at things like rights around transgender people. It's almost exclusively staffed by women, and it's very pro-feminist, and probably so. So with this story, which basically tackle the gender gap, again, the payment gender gap, you can see how they were able to connect numbers and figures with issues that directly affect citizens. So in conclusion, although I couldn't find evidence that and contributed to that some sort of really instrumental data literacy that we are accustomed to, Python or Java or whatever. They did a really significant contribution to disseminating something I found is far more important to improve data literacy overall. It's just that elementary notions of data awareness, that data is there, that data has a context, that data connects to issues, so they were really good at explaining how to correlate trends, how to perform data extrapolation, how to understand so necessary context of official stats and figures, issues of sampling and population, make sense of ordinary numbers that represent issues. But at the same time, the humanized number, they highlight their social relevance. At the same time, how numbers are often misused. They glamorize numbers, they popularize them, they make them something attractive, something snappy. And I think that is what is missing from the whole equation of data journalism, okay? Data journalism should be accurate, but it shouldn't be boring. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddy. Questions? Comments? I think we are heading to lunch.
Yeah,
Great.
everyone is starving.
Great. Let's be back.